Yeet. Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune. Our man Spencer Forsythe is on the keyboard behind us, monitoring the big board, whatever you want to call it. He's in control of the audio, the video, all that type of stuff. So we're here. We're here to talk some Oklahoma Sooners football. They started out 1-0 after a 45-13 victory over UTEP this weekend. The University of Texas El Paso Miners. They have Kent State this weekend for week 2 as Brent Venables looks to stay undefeated as a head coach in college football. He's on a streak, baby. So anyways, Parker, man, how you doing?
Fantastic. And yeah, I'm gonna go out there on a limb and say Brent Venables remains undefeated this weekend. I'm calling it. If you don't quantify one game as a winning streak, Brent Venables is about to be on a winning streak. So count me among those that believe the Sooners will be 2-0, heading home, for me at least, to the great state of Nebraska on September 17th. So, man, I'm looking forward to that game. I'm not trying to look past the opponent this weekend. I know Brent Venables would get on me if he heard me saying this, because he got asked about the college football playoff the other day at his midweek press conference, and he
did
was
not
like,
care.
yeah, he's like, it doesn't have to do with Kent State, doesn't have to do with today's practice. I could care less. And of course, then that turned into the whole social media debate over, is it I could care less or is it I could not care less? That's
I
neither here
couldn't
nor
care
there.
less, but yeah. Well, I mean, that's neither
Okay.
here nor there. You're
Everybody,
right.
everybody takes. I've said both before and will say both. So, but yeah, September 17th against Nebraska. Really looking forward to that one. It's kind of my worlds colliding. I've never attended an OU Nebraska game at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. Obviously, got the chance to cover OU Nebraska last year at Owen Field, but never been to OU Nebraska in Nebraska, and haven't been to Memorial Stadium since 2008. Nebraska played Kansas that day. It was probably 10 degrees, and Nebraska won 45-35. And Ndamukong Suh caught a touchdown pass. That's the one thing about that game that stands out in my young memory.
Yeah. He literally dominated that game. And you're talking about this is 2009, correct? That's when Landry Jones played catch with the Nebraska defensive backs.
Yes. The last time the Sooners made the trek to Lincoln, Landry Jones set a very ignominious school record. He was intercepted five times.
5 interceptions.
Tressway missed 3 field goals because for whatever reason, Tressway was handling place kicking duties that particular weekend.
Yes, because that's what he does. Yep. That's what he does.
And the Sooners lost that game 10-3. It was an atrocious football game. So
it was
13 years later, hopefully that experience can be redeemed.
Yeah. So here's the thing about that game. I know we're going back and blast from the past. Is I was living in Arkansas at the time, and I just vividly remember
Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas. Yeah, Arkansas, Conway, Arkansas. I said Arkansas, Texas. Texarkana, Arkansas is what I was going for. But Conway, Arkansas is where I was at. And yeah, it was tough to watch because everybody there is SEC all the way. And after Oklahoma lost to Florida the prior year, and I was at the Florida-Oklahoma game, they don't really care about the DeMarco Murray wasn't there. Like, they're not hearing that because Arkansas fans, God bless their soul, they are coattail riders when it comes to all the SEC elites. I like them. I love them, but they ride the coattails a lot.
Man, 3 minutes in and you're already picking a fight with the Razorback faithful.
No, well, I'm married to one, so I can do that. So anyways, yeah. So Oklahoma, Kent State this weekend, UTEP last weekend. We talked about it on the podcast. We talked about, things that stood out, things that Oklahoma needed to work on a little bit better. I still, there still seems a reigning question with everybody with the defensive backs in this game. And I still contend, folks, 51 pass attempts is what it took to get 288 yards. 51 pass attempts. And they had 20 incompletions. Anytime you have 20 incompletions, that's not a good day throwing the ball. It's not. 6 sacks. I think there was like 10 QB hurries, if not more. Several deflected passes. I mean, they probably should have had 4 or 5 other interceptions, to be honest with you. But I thought the pass defense was good. I didn't think there was anything wrong, especially with what they were trying to do, because Ted Roof and Brent Venables Parker came out and said, look, they are known for going over the top on you. They're going to try to push the deep ball. They're going to try to push the big play. That's what they've gotten all their points off of over the last few years, was big play after big play after big play. Obviously, they lost a lot of their top wide receivers, so they weren't going to be as electric as they were the prior year. And they didn't lose it to the NFL. They lost it to the transfer portal. So that hindered them. But they still had an excellent offensive line. They were max protecting the whole time. The defensive line was literally going 4-on-7 trying to get to the quarterback, and they did a lot of the time, which the other question is I don't know if we like the pass rush a lot. I'm like, what game were you all watching? I know Parker and I've already discussed this, and we were watching a completely different game than a lot of other people. So I think there was, and follow me on this, Parker. Do you think there was just, for some, because the name Brent Venables was attached to the defense, there was an excess of expectations for some, and they expected it to be 2016 Clemson and 2018 Clemson, like right off the bat?
I mean, people's expectations were all over the board, but in reality, Brandon, this is pretty much exactly the type of defensive performance from Oklahoma that you should have expected, which is to say it was not going to be, there was not going to be an over-the-top effort to shut UTEP down. Brent Venables and Ted Roof and the remainder of this Oklahoma defensive staff, they were not going to be pulling out all the stops for UTEP. Right. They were going to keep things as milquetoast as possible defensively. And they did. That's part of why we got the question so many times in the hours and days following that game. Why wasn't Justin Harrington on the field more? Well, because the Sooners base defense has Deshaun White in that cheetah position. And there was not really a dire need to change up the look and or vary from that base defensive scheme, because you're not only thinking about getting past UTEP this week or UTEP this past week and Kent State this coming week, but you're thinking about Nebraska and Kansas State and TCU and Texas down the road. You're thinking about how you can gain the upper hand on those programs, which are going to present far more of a challenge than UTEP and Kent State will. And so what you want to do, naturally, if you are forward thinking, is you want to give them as little to go off on tape as possible. You want to be able to pull out some looks, some packages, some blitzes, and some coverages against teams like that they have not scouted for and that they have not seen on tape. And so I expect, look, Kent State is a good offensive team relative to the rest of the teams in their conference. They play in the MAC, right? So it's not a terribly high standard of excellent football in that conference. That's not a knock on it. That's just the reality. The MAC year in and year out is a very average group of 5 conference that experiences a lot of self-cannibalism. There are a lot of 7-5, 8-4 teams in the MAC because they're so evenly matched. But offensively, relative to the rest of their conference, Kent State is a pretty successful offensive team. And so I expect that when they come to Norman this Saturday, they're going to rack up some yards. They're going to move the ball a little bit. The outcome of the game is never going to be in doubt because the Sooners are far more talented than the Golden Flashes on both sides of the football. But you're kidding yourself if you expect Oklahoma to shut out Kent State or completely power down their offense this weekend. I would argue that, and this is going to sound strange to some, but I would argue that that's not what you want to do unless you can do it with very basic, very straightforward defensive looks, which you simply can't with a team like Kansas State. They're good enough and they're coached well enough that they will find holes, right? So the Sooners are going to win this game handily this weekend, but I expect Kent State to put up at least 250, 300 yards of total offense. It's not going to be an utter whitewashing. And you know what? That's okay, because that means when the Sooners go up to Lincoln on September 17th for their first road test of the year, and they get into a legit battle, and Casey Thompson's having some success through the air, and the Huskers are winning the battle up front in the trenches, all of a sudden, Venables in Oklahoma are going to be able to pull out all the stops, and they're going to be able to take some of the things that they haven't done thus far this season. And we've heard about how extensive the Sooners' new defensive playbook is. You're going to be able to dig deep into the bag of tricks and give Nebraska some looks that they aren't prepared for. Same thing the following week against Kansas State. So these first 2 weeks are as much about establishing what you don't want your future opponents to see as they are about shutting down the opponent at hand on that particular Saturday.
No doubt. I look, there wasn't a lot of slants. There wasn't a lot of stunts. There wasn't a lot of extravagant blitzes that we've been accustomed to, not just during Brent Venables' time at Clemson, but his time at Oklahoma. I mean, he was known for just getting extravagant and crazy with these blitzes. He was known for blitzing. I think it was like 65% of the time he had some sort of blitz dialed up during his time at Oklahoma previously and at Clemson. And that definitely was not the case on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon in that scorching heat. So, yeah, I agree. It's going to be bland again. People need to remember that Kent State, I think, was ranked 6th or 3rd or something like that in rush offense last year. So they're not going to be just some pushover instantly when they show up. They played for their conference title game last year. I believe, didn't they win their bowl game, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, they did. Like I said,
and weren't they
this is a pretty good football
They were the same
program.
team. Yeah, no, they were the same team that was, I think they were down 13-10 at the end of the third quarter against Texas A&M last year. So I think Oklahoma fans need to be ready for this not to be just like, obviously Oklahoma's going to win the ball game unless something just horrible happens to Oklahoma. And that would just be honestly, I can't see a Brent Venables team just coming in and not prepared. That's just not who they are. They're so much reminiscent of, and how this program's ran, of early years Bob Stoops, where he was young, energetic, and was just not going to put up with crap. Everybody was going to have to do their job week in and week out, and they're going to be sound in everything that they do, and that's how this team is going to perform. But even if they do that with as little as they're going to try to show, there's going to be times where this defense will probably break a little bit. The offense will probably stall a little bit at times because they're trying not to show the whole cupboard, I guess, if you will, before they get to Nebraska or Kansas State or Texas. So fans have to understand that. They have to think like how a coach and the players are thinking, and not the fans, because I know fans want perfection. Media, we want perfection, because if we don't, it gives us a lot to write about when there's not perfection, and a lot to critique. And that's the same way with the fan, especially fans that are overzealous in their expectations, if you will. So I'm just trying to temper the expectations a little bit on what to expect. The good news is I do expect them to open the playbook up a little more. And the reason being, they're not going to show everything. They're not going to do a lot of crazy stuff, but they're going to do just enough to pique the interest of some potential visitors this weekend. I believe. I do. I believe it. You have to catch their attention.
Let's get into those visitors in a second. First off, a little promo courtesy of the bot in our comment section right now. Stop watching the stream and find love at 69mega.com. So
69
if you're interested in finding love, 69mega.com is where you need to head right now, as opposed to continuing to watch me and Brandon. However,
I don't think it's the type of love that
you're
thinking. I don't think it's the type of love that you're insinuating to.
If you're more interested in recruiting updates, however, we are looking at a big weekend for Oklahoma in terms of the visitors that they're going to be on campus. And Brandon, would you agree with the sentiment that this is probably going to be, all things considered, the biggest recruiting weekend of the fall for Oklahoma? And I know it's early, but just based on how many targets are left on the board at this point and the percentage of those targets that are in town this particular weekend, I'd be comfortable saying this is probably the biggest game day for Oklahoma in terms of recruiting that they're going to have all fall.
Bedlam.
If you're looking ahead to 2024, Bedlam could be big time.
No, you have LeBlanc. You're going to have David Hicks taking official visits. You're going to have several other guys. As a matter of fact, most of the big official visits, because they're only going to have one big weekend for officials. They're going to have, obviously, you're going to have Renaud taking an official this weekend. On the 15th, you're going to have Cecilia Kana, and potentially you could have Malachi Coleman somewhere around that vicinity as well. Okay. That's fine. But as far as these others, like you're going to have Jackson Arnold taking his official visit, I believe for Bedlam, you're going to have Derek LeBlanc, you're going to have David Hicks. Trying to think, there's like 5 or 6 guys that are taking their official visits that weekend.
Yeah, but what I'm more getting at with that comment, Brandon, is
I guess you're getting uncommitted guys,
uncommitted
Yeah, I
guys.
would say that's fair. That's fair. Outside of David Hicks, for Bedlam and maybe 1 or 2 others, and when I say 1 or 2 others, it could be a Peyton Bowen or a Marvin Burks Jr. or somebody for Bedlam. So I think that would kind of push it over the top for Bedlam if that happens to be the case. But for this particular weekend, you're going to have 5-star. Likely, his dad told me likely they're coming. He told me on multiple. See, they told me 2 weeks ago, and we reported it 2 weeks ago, that we thought everybody was talking about the Texas-Alabama game, and I was sitting there going, no, they're not going to the Texas-Alabama game. If they go anywhere that weekend, it will be Oklahoma and Kent State, and I put it on our board. So our board, OU Insider VIP, has known about this potential visit for several weeks, and I talked to his dad again 2 days ago and came out again. He said, look, they're likely to take that visit. His brother has opening day for their their Little League football games are starting up this Saturday. So he's got a brother. He's got a full brother. He's got two half brothers, essentially. And one of the half brothers, mom wants him to stay and play the game, and they don't want to go on a visit. The other one, obviously, they don't care if the game's missed to go up there because the kid is 8 years old and they're going to see their brother's potential future if he was to choose Oklahoma. And I think that's very vitally important to the family right now, is where DJ essentially ends up with them. So it's likely at this point. I will know for sure on Thursday night or Friday morning. We'll have a better understanding of what DJ is going to do as I work to confirm that even more with his father. But Peyton Bowen, we were first to report Peyton Bowen was going to be there for this weekend's game, 5-star Notre Dame commit. Also, his brother Eli Bowen's going to be there. Jackson Arnold's going to be there. Trying to think who else off the top of my head. I know I'm forgetting somebody.
Jordan Renaud.
Oh, Jordan Renaud. Jordan Renaud's taking an official visit. I'm over here with these 2 unofficials and totally forgot. Yeah, Jordan Renaud, who I'm going to see Friday night. I'm going to watch him Friday night, and he's going to be in Norman on Saturday. So we will have updates for him on Friday or Saturday morning. And we will have an update on him after he leaves Norman for his official visit. As of right now, there is buzz that Bama is trending. There is buzz that Oklahoma is trending. It depends on which side you talk to with him. But here's the thing. The last 2 visits before he makes a decision on September 19th, he will have visited Oklahoma twice. On July 29th and 30th, I think he stayed 3 days, I believe was how that worked, or 2 or 3 days.
He was there a while.
When he came up on the 20. Yeah. Him and David Hicks, because David Hicks came on Thursday and left on Sunday. He was there for 4 days. And I believe Renaud was there 3 days when he came in on the 29th and 30th and 31st of July before it became dead period and fall camp started up. The next visit he's taking is to Oklahoma before he makes his decision. So
are you going to say it, Brandon? Or are you going to let the chat say it?
Put the crystal ball in?
No. Follow the visits.
Follow the visits. Follow the stinking visits. Yeah, I know. That's my saying. Follow the stinking visits. Yeah, and this is following the visits. So if I am a betting man at this point, but you can't ever. I want a disclosure here. I'll never just discount Nick Saban in Alabama, by the way. Like, they're still going to be hovering there, and there's a potential of him taking a visit for the Alabama Texas A&M game on October 8th. But the good news for Oklahoma fans is that's the same weekend as OU Texas, which is just an hour and a half drive from Tyler Legacy. So if you're his dad and he's committed to Oklahoma potentially, you're going to urge him to go take that unofficial to the Cotton Bowl, because you're not going to want to drive 8 hours. That's my guess at this point. So we'll see how this all plays out. But I'm interested to see after I talk to him, after they play this weekend against Longview. So we're not even going to see Longview. I'm going to see Willie Nelson, the 3-star defensive back 2024 class that Oklahoma's offered, and Taylor. My gosh, I just went blank here.
Taylor Tatum.
Taylor Tatum, TT. Taylor Tatum, 4-star running back from Longview. We'll get to watch both. Obviously, Jalen Hale is going to be there, but Jalen Hale and Oklahoma are not a thing. It's a Texas A&M battle there. So
I thought it was a Texas-Alabama battle for that one.
Oh, he's out with A&M now?
I haven't heard A&M mentioned.
Oh no, I saw on the board, and I don't pay a lick attention to it. I just read what I see on their message board, and I see them still talking about Jalen Hale. So
yeah,
it could be Alabama.
He's committing on September 22nd, and the word from people in the know with that recruitment is that it's Texas or Alabama. Which if
he's going to Texas, what I would bet. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though. If the outcome of that Texas-Alabama game is what you expected to be this Saturday, how do you turn around and commit to Texas?
That's fair. I just don't.
We'll see about it.
If they're not like, if they're players that aren't really serious about Oklahoma, I don't really waste my time following it anymore, just because it's just wasted energy in my part at that point. And I know the OU fans don't care about it, so why should I care? So, anyways, yeah. Here's the thing: is I'm gonna go see all those guys down there, and I look forward to talking to all three of them, because I know Taylor Tatum is very high on Oklahoma. He came to a camp and just showed out in June. I mean, balled out. And DeMarco Murray is very high on him. I will not be surprised if he's a part of the Oklahoma class of 2024 at all. Will not.
It's interesting because the Sooners have so many possibilities at the running back position in the class of 2024. Tops on the list is probably Stacey Gage, right? And it's been that way for quite some time. But you mentioned Taylor Tatum. You think about Nate Palmer out of Decatur, Texas. That's a guy with familial connections to Oklahoma. He's cousins with Josh Ellison. And then you have Caden Durham, who's at Duncanville now. All 5'9" of him, but man, he can fly. And he's originally from Moore, Oklahoma. So I think the running back
played at OU. One was a track star. The other one, I believe, may ran track as well, or did something at Oklahoma. And his sister's at Oklahoma. I don't believe either soccer or track now.
So the point there being, running back is probably going to fill up pretty quickly for Oklahoma in the class of 2024, because you think back to this past cycle, and it took until late June, early July, I believe, before Dalen Smothers committed, and that was it between him and Caleb Hicks for Oklahoma's running back class. But with so many guys that are high on Oklahoma at this point in the process, and with there only being ostensibly 2 spots for running backs in any given class, it's kind of tough to project now who those 2 takes end up being. But you got a lot of candidates, and among the candidates that you do have, all these guys are going to be real high-level football players.
Dude, I don't know that they take 2 running backs in 2024. I know they have most classes, or at least they tried, whether in the transfer portal or through the high school ranks. But say we all both believe Eric Gray is going to be gone after this year.
Sure,
you're still going to have Caleb Hicks, Dalen Smothers, Gavin Sawchuk, Devontae Barnes, and Marcus Major coming back for 2023.
Yeah, in addition to Tawi Walker too. I believe
Tawi Walker and
Beno Thompson. Beno Thompson graduates, but Emeka Megwa will be eligible. You're going to have Tawi Walker coming back. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility as well. Maybe they only take one guy. And if they only take one guy, who is that one guy? Then it really is a matter of striking while the iron's hot. Because
I mean, Caden Durham,
it's going to be first come, first serve.
Taylor Tatum. Dude, that's going to be probably one of the more interesting positions as far as 2024 goes, just because of the talent and where Oklahoma stands with like 3 or 4 of those guys. So it's going to be, like you said, first come, first serve, and who that person is, and I think fans are going to be happy either way. I know a lot of fans prefer Stacey Gage because of just how fast he came onto the scene and how much notoriety he has already with the Oklahoma fan base. Being a kid that's from Oklahoma, moved down to the Tampa area, then to IMG, now back to Tampa. And I think he's at Wharton High School. So now playing, but King Durham is a freak, like a physical specimen. And Taylor Tatum, Taylor Tatum and King Durham can flat fly. Stacey Gage is more of your Samaje Perine. Like, he's not going to burn you as far as speed goes, but he's going to be able to break it 60 yards. If it's an 80-yard run, chances are he might get caught behind. But 60-yard run, he's probably going to make 65. He's probably going to score. So that's just, I mean, it's not a huge difference in speed, but it's noticeable on those 88 and out the gate runs. So, and he's built a lot like he's built thick, stocky, very well put together type guys. So there's a lot of things Oklahoma can do for the 2024 class as far as the running back position goes. I keep seeing these stupid 69 megadot. Can we block this person? My gosh, keep going crazy in our chat. Anyways, let's talk about Kent State. Like, and we'll talk about recruiting here in just a bit, but what is your overall thoughts on this game? What are you looking for Oklahoma to improve upon going into week 2? They say between week 1, week 2, and week 2, week 3 are the biggest jumps that most teams make during the season. So where do you see the biggest jump for Oklahoma being made between week 1 and week 2?
I think it's got to be offensive line play. And there were some inconsistencies. There were some issues with offensive line play a week ago. McCade Matire did not have a great debut in a Sooner uniform. And there were a lot of folks that figured he was injured or at the very least banged up. But we got to talk to McCade Matire after practice on Monday, and he was insistent that, no, I'm good. And when asked why he came out of the game in favor of Robert Conjul in the second quarter, he was he legitimately didn't know. He said, that's a Coach B question. I couldn't tell you, but I guess I needed a breather or something. So not quite clear what the issue is there with Matire, if he just maybe had a bad game or what the case may be. But he got beat a couple times. He got beat real badly on the very first play of the game, and Dylan Gabriel almost took a shot because of it. But obviously with Wanye Morris on the shelf right now, you've got Tyler Guyton playing left tackle. Anton Harrison has moved over to right tackle. And so to me, this is what truly matters early in the season for Oklahoma offensively, because you know what you have at your skill positions. You got a huge performance Saturday from Braden Willis, and it's pretty clear that if there was any question that he's the guy at the tight end position, that has been settled. He is the guy. So Dylan Gabriel is the steady hand on the tiller. He missed a couple throws, as will happen early in the season. He's working out some kinks in week 1. That's understandable. He's a precise enough guy that he's going to get that issue remedied, and it won't be something that plagues him down the line. Really, my only concern offensively right now is, what does the picture look like up front in the trenches, and what gives you the best chance to win? And can you maintain continuity? Because I love McCade Matire, man. It was no accident that he started from the get-go as a true freshman at Cal. It was a 3-year starter out there, all Pac-12 guy. I think pound for pound, he has the potential to be one of the most consistent offensive linemen, if not the most consistent offensive lineman on Oklahoma's roster. But you just didn't see that in game 1. And so is that a blip? Is that a trend? I don't know. Chris Murray is awesome at right guard. Awesome. That's a dude that you can count on. Similarly, with Anton Harrison, that's a guy that you know you're going to get solid snaps out of game in and game out. And Andrew Rain really does seem to be settling in at the center position. The question becomes the left side of that line now, with Tyler Guyton playing left tackle and Matire playing left guard for now, right? But you saw a lot of
I think it'd
Conjul
be
at that
Conjul.
position on Saturday. Yeah. And so not only I'm not only concerned about what the picture looks like this weekend against Kent State, but what does the picture look like going forward? Once you get Wanye Morris back into the fold, is he plug and play right back into the starting lineup? He's practicing with the team right now, so it's not as if there will need to be a reacclimation. We shall see. But offensively for Oklahoma, that is my biggest question and biggest thing I need to see rectified / remedied heading into this game against Kent State. Defensively, I thought Oklahoma did a lot of really good things. And again, I think the expectation from fans should be heading into this game Saturday night. The Sooners are going to play really basic, boring defense. They will allow a few scoring drives, and they will not do much of anything with regard to disguising, stunting, zone blitzing, any of that. They're going to keep it as rudimentary as possible so that they have the whole arsenal at their disposal when they go up to Lincoln and then when they return home for that September 24th home conference opener against Kansas State.
Yeah, I see a lot of Tyler Guyton hate in the chat. I thought the left side, the issues were more Matwire for the majority of the time until they put Conjul in there than it was Guyton. I mean, when you're playing tackle in the inside, you're trying to help because you see things are going wrong, to your inside at the guard position. Most tackles try to compensate and do both because of their length and their athleticism. And yeah, that's a struggle. But also the other thing is people are saying Tyler Guyton's not ready. He's notoriously been a right tackle and not a left tackle all fall camp. And I just keep going back to when I asked Bobby Evans one time the difference between left and right tackle. And he said, it is strange. Your kick step, everything that you're doing is just opposite of what you've trained for so long. So he was asked to go to a different position out of necessity on the opposite side of what he's been doing all fall camp. I think you got to give him another chance and see, because he wasn't bad the whole time. I didn't think Guyton was horrible by any stretch of it. I didn't think he was great. I thought he was okay during the game. I thought Matwire was really bad. I'm going to admit it. I thought he was bad. I thought when they put Conjul in there, things really smoothed out. Even Jake Taylor got in there and played well at the guard position on Saturday. And I believe Brent Venables even talked about him during one of his, I don't remember what show it was, but he even made mention of it. And I wrote a note that I thought he was surprisingly okay when he got in there, whether it was mop up duty or filling in because of the heat. He was okay. He played pretty well for a guy that it was his first ball game to ever get in there. So I thought the freshmen were good when they were in there. So I think the depth is there on the offensive line, but obviously you want more consistency on that left side. That is a given. So for me, I think you go, honestly, if I am beating Bo, which I'm not, and I'm not the best offensive line coach in the country, that's kind of his thing. I would flip Anton back to the left, put Conjul at left guard, Rame at center, right guard Chris Murray, right tackle Guyton, if Wanye isn't available, because they're still trying to work out whatever. There's hopes that he can come back this week. They expect him to back fully for Nebraska, one way or the other. That's what I've heard. We'll see if that happens, just because of the situation that it is. Those type of situations sometimes can be drug out horribly long. So, but anyways, yeah, I don't know. Would you agree with me on if that's how you would go, or would you give Matwire another shot?
I think Matwire has proven throughout the spring and throughout the fall that he's your best option at left guard. I don't think you write him off after that performance. Does it raise some red flags? Yes, absolutely. But also, I don't think one bad performance is enough where you're going to uproot a guy and shuffle the deck because you're not really in a position to panic yet. And we know Bill Bedenbaugh won't, right? Bill Bedenbaugh knows exactly the pieces that he has to work with and how he wants to line them up. One guy that's kind of, I think, an X factor in all of this is, man, folks within the program are really, really impressed with Savion Byrd. Does he maybe get a look at a certain point? And that is a guy that can play inside and he can play outside.
He can play both.
And,
he can play both. Yeah.
And to the conversation about offensive tackle, right versus left, and how they differ, Brandon, at the end of the day, you got to do your best to keep guys where they feel most comfortable, because think of it as, and I get not everybody will have a frame of reference for this, but think of it as you're on the starting block to run a sprint, right? And you have a certain way, you have a certain foot that it feels more natural to put forward, right? If you switched those feet and you put the other foot forward as opposed to the one that feels natural, you're gonna get off a lot slower, right? It's gonna feel weird,
right?
And so it's that type of phenomenon at offensive tackle, which is, if you rep long enough at left tackle, it's going to feel natural enough for you to start your set with your left foot. But you go over to right tackle, you're going to have to flip-flop it. And it's going to take some getting used to. And you're probably not going to be as quick to fire off as you are on the other side. And so I don't know. This is something that Bill Bedenbaugh knows and we don't. I don't know which tackle position Anton Harrison is more comfortable at. I would figure it's probably left tackle, but regardless of where those guys have been repping, I think you got to do your best to make sure that you lock them in at whichever position they feel the most comfortable and figure it out from there. You have Rame as your anchor at the center position. You have Chris Murray locked in as your right guard. That is where the offensive tackle conversation becomes prevalent and preeminent, right? Because if you don't have strong play at the tackle positions, then your quarterback is going to be under duress a lot. I'm not worried about left guard. I'm not. I think regardless of what the answer is, whether it's Matire, Robert Conjal, Savion Byrd, I don't question that Bill Bedenbaugh is going to find that answer. And again, I'm not throwing Matire out with the garbage after a single game. The kid's really good, and I think he's going to rebound. But to me, the bigger question is, how does right tackle and left tackle, how do those two positions shake themselves out going forward, especially once Wanye Morris is back in the mix? Because if you have two guys that you feel real confident in at tackle, whether that's Harrison and Morris or Harrison and Guyton, whatever the case may be, then I feel that you can feel confident in your offensive line as a whole at Oklahoma. I feel as though moving forward, you look at what the Sooners are going to roll out there offensively in terms of a complete unit to kick off conference play. There's not really a conspicuous area of weakness if you have all of your bases covered at offensive tackle.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But there's people in here, they're saying, I've seen a couple of comments well, it's about rent with one. It's not about his rent situation. Like
it's not. No.
It has nothing to do with that, folks. So anyways, but for me on the defensive side, I think the improvement I want to see is them actually taking advantage of the takeaway chances that they have, like catching the interception when they get a chance. It wasn't, and people say Danny Stutzman. It wasn't just Stutzman that had issues on Saturday. He had a couple of issues, but I mean, there were other guys that had chances. There was a couple of fumble recoveries they could have gotten. Like when you have those chances, you have to take advantage of them. And I think that's something Oklahoma needs to get more proficient at, because that could be a make or break point in a ball game down the line. That's a close ball game. You saw it in Bedlam last year. You saw it in a couple of games over the last few years where Oklahoma had chances. They didn't come up with the interception or the fumble recovery or the stop on fourth down that could have completely turned the momentum in their direction. and they ended up losing the ball game because of it. I think they've got to do those things, especially against the UTEP and the Kent States of the world. You've got to be efficient and proficient at getting turnovers when given the chance and the opportunity. That is how you go from a very good defense to an elite defense. And the elite defenses, they cause takeaways over and over and over during a ball game and cause an offense to feel nervous and uncomfortable because they never know what's going to happen when the ball is put in the air. No matter the guys wide open, you just don't know. Teams that are really good at takeaways tend to make offenses super nervous. Obviously, that's a very given answer, right? Like that's something that everybody knows. And Oklahoma had so many opportunities on Saturday. I think there was like four or five chances between fumble recoveries and interceptions that just slipped through their hands, literally slipped through their hands. And you've got to come up with those things. So I think that's the type of thing that if you're Oklahoma, you look for that. And I think you also look for just more of I thought Jalen Redmond was really good pushing up the gut. There was a couple of plays where he just literally bulldozed a dude all the way back into the quarterback, which allowed Grimes and forced Grimes, the quarterback, over towards Grimes. He was able to make a tackle. So I think they've got to get more consistent out of not just Reggie Grimes, Ethan Downs, and Jalen Redmond as far as a pass rush. You need to have more than that. You need Stripling to start stepping up. You need, obviously, R. Mason Thomas was really good when he was given a chance on Saturday. You need Jeffrey Johnson. You need Josh Ellison, Jordan Kelly. Those guys in the middle have got to get a better push, I thought, up the middle. I thought the defensive line was good. I thought they were good. But the way Todd Bates and Brent Venables and their expectation for the defensive line, they have things they can work on. Do I think they're going to be a great defensive line by the end of the season? Yes, I do. But they had things they needed to work on, in particular, the pass rush push up the middle. The edges were good. I mean, that's where all the sacks are coming from. So you can't hate on the run defense, though, and particularly against a team like Kent State, who was so good at the run last year. How Oklahoma plays the run, how well they tackled in game one. If they can do that in game two, you got like Oklahoma's chances to really shut down the run game again and continue to be one of the best run defenses in the country. I just like what Oklahoma's doing there. I like how sure tackling Oklahoma was on Saturday. And I think that's something that Oklahoma fans are going to become accustomed to under Brent Venables' defense once again.
Have you done the Ricardo Leblanc shout out yet?
I haven't, and I've seen like four of them, and I'm sorry, I just got solely excited. Ricardo, what's up, man? I know you're listening. You always text me eventually during this to tell me that you're listening. So shout out goes to you right there, my friend. Anyways, go ahead. You have something to say with what I just said?
No, I don't have much to add to that. Let's go ahead and hit some questions from the chat with that.
Go ahead if you found one.
One viewer says OUD line looked small compared to UTEP's O line, in my opinion. Anyone else think that? I certainly didn't think that. This is one of the biggest defensive lines that Oklahoma has had in quite some time. You got two defensive ends in Reggie Grimes and Ethan Downs that are both in excess of 260 pounds. And then you got the freight trains in the interior with Jalen Redmond and Jeffrey Johnson. So, no, I do not think Oklahoma's offensive line is small in any sense of the word.
Well, I mean, even Jalen Redmond, who came in at like 235, 240 at max at most as a freshman, I believe he's over 280 now, 285, something like that, 288, something to that extent. Tommy Harris played at 290 at Oklahoma. Dvorak, in Brent Venables' defense, you don't need to be massive. They're not playing a generic three-man front. For the most part, they're playing hybrid. They'll do three-man, four-man, depending on, and they'll slide, a stand-up edge, or they'll bring another defensive in there to put it something. They do a lot of, they're multiple in how they attack. But that's where a guy like Isaiah Coe comes in, or a Jeffrey Johnson comes in. Those guys are over 300 pounds. They're like 315, 310, something like that. They're big guys. That's your anchors in the middle. So no, I don't think they were small, but UTEP also had one of the most experienced and oldest offensive lines in college football, from what Venables kept saying. So that's nothing to just like scoff at. Their head coach is an offensive line guy. Their offensive line is always going to be good because of that. And so what Oklahoma did going up against a max protection front, I liked what the defensive line did. I thought they could have been better with pass rush pressure up the middle, but overall, when you add the run game and you add how many sacks they had in QB hurries, you can't be too upset about that if you're an Oklahoma fan, especially with no slants, not very many stunts, no extravagant blitzes. Like they weren't just doing a whole heck of a lot to get that pass rush other than saying line it up and just say go get them. So I don't know, man. I thought overall the size didn't really mean much to me.
No, I agree with you. Back to the chat here. Kelvin Gilliam going to be really good next year, says one viewer. Agree with that. Right now, I would probably say with Redmond and Jeffrey Johnson out the door next year, I'd favor Isaiah Coe if he's back and Kelvin Gilliam to start on the interior. And much can change this year to next, but agree. Yeah. Kelvin Gilliam is going to be really, really good. When is Clayton Smith going to get some burn? I mean, the harsh reality right now is it looks like R. Mason Thomas has fully supplanted Clayton Smith. And so when you're looking for a speed rusher off the edge, it looks as though Miguel Chavis and Oklahoma are going to turn to two guys in particular, Marcus Stripling and R. Mason Thomas. Clayton Smith is probably third at highest in the pecking order in that regard. And you saw him a little bit towards the end of the game, but I think it spoke volumes for just how good R. Mason Thomas has been in fall camp, that he was getting snaps early and he was getting snaps regularly all throughout the game. And so at this point, Clayton Smith faces an uphill battle when it comes to getting meaningful playing time, because not only do you now have to deal with Marcus Stripling higher up the totem pole than you, but R. Mason Thomas is already up there and he's rising. Brent Venables said yesterday in his press conference that R. Mason Thomas is going to be, and I quote, hell on wheels. That is high praise from Brent Venables.
Yeah, that was my question. I asked him, what was I believe I asked him about Danny Stutzman and R. Mason Thomas and what's made them, and what has he seen most about their growth since he's arrived on campus with Danny Stutzman and since R. Mason arrived in June. Like what has been the difference between them now and going through that first ball game? And the things that he had to say, like he said, look, this guy's got he's got a squared up body. He's going to be able to hold 260, 65 pounds before it's all said and done. He leaves college. He believes, and we're talking about R. Mason Thomas here. And like he said, Parker said, Venables said he's hell on wheels. He's a winner. He comes from a winning program, won back-to-back state titles. He knows how to win. He expects to win. He knows the work that needs to be put in to win, and that showed the second he got on campus, because he was focused and he just put in the work and just had a appetite to be really, really good. And that was the difference between him and ultimately Clayton Smith at this point. And it's just at some point, I watched Clayton Smith in high school multiple times. I am still baffled that he hasn't surged yet, because he has all the athleticism and ability in the world. It's just a matter of him wanting to get it up here and in here. And that's what everybody keeps saying. The second he has the heart for it and the mind for it and the love for it, the world is his oyster. So it's just nobody can figure that out. As far as Danny Stutzman goes, I thought that was a really interesting story where Parker, he said, hey, I was walking by him in the hall and I asked him, are you ever going to get a playbook? do you ever want to come learn our language on how we do things? Are you going to put in the work? And he said he showed up without a pencil or a pen or anything to write with. And they had a couple of heart to hearts. And he said after about the second or third heart to heart, bam, it just clicked with Danny. And he went from being the most athletic guy, the guy that loves football, loves to win, loves to play hard, just gritty, hard-nosed guy, to, okay, I can be all those things, and I can also have it mentally up here and understand what's going to happen and why we're doing these things. That way he can be the leader that he needed to be at the middle linebacker position, because that's essentially what Venables was getting at, is like, I'm looking towards you. You're a sophomore, and I'm going to point towards you to be the leader of this defense. And until you figure that out, we're not going to be as good as we need to be. And eventually Danny just kind of took to it, and the rest is history. We saw what he did on Saturday. He had 9 tackles, solo tackles. He had, what do you have, like 1 or 2 tackles for losses. He had 2 pass deflections. I mean, that's a heck of a ball game for, the first time you ever started. And it feels like he's been here forever, by the way. And he started more than just one season. I don't know. Did it not feel like Danny's been here for a couple of years now?
He has been here for a couple of years now.
Well, you understand what I'm saying. I'm smart Alec. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it feels like he should be a junior or senior, not just a true sophomore.
He's certainly ahead of schedule. And we kind of knew that was going to be the case as soon as we saw him on the field last fall. Right. And so it's encouraging to see his trajectory as a football player. And you're real excited about where a guy like that can go under the tutelage of Brent Venables. And again, I said going into the season, triple-digit tackles should be the expectation for Danny Stutzman, and he's on that pace right now, as long as he maintains. Back to the chat, Javonte Barnes looked really, really good enough to be RB1 by the end of the year. What do you guys think? Now, Barnes is a really exciting young player, and he is somebody that we've been talking about and talking up for literally a year and a half now. Anybody who has watched this stream and been a VIP on OU Insider for the last year and a half knows how high we are on Javonte Barnes. Thing is, he's got to hold on to the football, right? He had 4 carries, 25 yards. He did demonstrate some really impressive burst and a great first step on Saturday, but he also fumbled. And though OU was able to jump back on it, the harsh reality is you're not going to play for DeMarco Murray if you're fumbling the ball. If you're putting the ball on the turf,
no.
There is somebody else that is ready and waiting for that opportunity that will not put the ball on the turf. And that's why Kennedy Brooks was so successful at Oklahoma over the years. Is not only was he a guy that was going to get you 5-6 yards on every single carry, but he was not going to let the ball get away from him. He did not lose a fumble over the course of his 3 full seasons at the University of Oklahoma. So for Barnes, man, it's just, he's so exciting. Yes. But it's a matter of hammering out the imperfections, improving ball security, improving knowledge of the playbook, improving consistency, not just on the gridiron on Saturdays, but in practice throughout the week. And I think the refreshing thing, if you're a Sooner fan, is that if Barnes ends up ahead of schedule and he ends up leapfrogging Marcus Major on this depth chart and becoming the primary handcuff to Eric Gray, or even out snapping Gray at some point, if that doesn't end up happening, you still have 2 stable, capable options in Gray and Major that you can turn to. And Gray topped 100 yards for the first time as a Sooner this past Saturday. Major looked really, really good as well. 7 carries, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, when you're talking about ceiling, Barnes' ceiling is just as high, if not higher, than anybody in that room. But it comes down to the little things, and ball security is one of those little things. So if you're concerned about one thing with Javonte Barnes in the aftermath of that contest, it's okay. Let's hope that's a blip and not a trend, because if ball security is an issue, he's going to find himself buried on the depth chart. I thought it was interesting that Gavin Sawchuk was a healthy scratch, did not play. And that was something that Brent Venables mentioned in his midweek press conference yesterday as well. I figure you see him at some point this weekend, you'd think.
But he was suited up because I saw him. I mean, we both
he
saw
was
him
suited up. He was suited up. Among the true freshmen that didn't play, I think it was him, Caden Helms, Nick Anderson didn't play. Jaden Gibson got in at the very, very end. Cedric Roberts didn't dress out, nor did Jaden Rowe. Alton Tarber dressed out but didn't play. So there were really only a select few true freshmen that played substantially. R. Mason Thomas obviously tops on that list, but you did see Barnes get some healthy snaps all throughout the game. He entered the game for the first time in the fourth quarter, and he was still in the game late in the fourth as well. So it comes down to how much trust DeMarco Murray and the Oklahoma staff can place in Javonte Barnes. As long as he continues to prove that he can earn their trust, the sky is the limit. And it's cliche, but it's true. Javonte Barnes is really, really, really talented. And Brent Venables, I guess, made a comment, something of an ambiguous comment where some folks thought he was comparing Gavin Freeman to Adrian Peterson yesterday in his midweek press conference, but he followed up on his coach's show later that night and said, no, I was talking about Javonte Barnes. That was the parallel that I was drawing between Javonte Barnes and Adrian Peterson. So look, nobody is Adrian Peterson. There's only one Adrian Peterson. And Javonte Barnes does have the opportunity to be a really, really productive and very successful back at the University of Oklahoma, regardless of how soon it all comes together. And I do think it'll come together a lot sooner than most other kids his age.
Yeah, I mean, Brent Venables, he gave obviously that loose comparison to Adrian Peterson during the freshman campaign is what he was kind of getting at when he said, when they ran by you, when Adrian ran by you, like the ground shook a little bit because you were like, whoa, he's going to break it right here. Like you just had that anticipation, that excitement that when he touched the ball, something good was going to happen. And he said that's the same way everybody on the sideline felt when Javonte touched the ball on Saturday, even in mop-up duty. It was just exciting. You knew he had a chance to almost, if not break it, if he could just break that last tackle. So they think, and he was asked during, I guess, the Rudy show or whatever they do on the weekends or during one of the weekdays. I think maybe it was yesterday or the Tuesday night or whatever. And they said, hey, what freshmen do you think, or what players stood out that could be getting some more play? He named Jake Taylor. He named Javonte Barnes, Jaron Kanak, and I'm trying to think of another freshman that he named, or young guy. Oh, Gavin Freeman. Those were the four freshmen that he named that he thought had a chance to play more because of what they did on Saturday. And we'll see. I mean, he even made more reference to Gavin Freeman of he said, I'm over here edging him saying, let's keep him in there for 4 or 5 more plays. Let's see if he can do it with that. Let's see what he can do on these other plays if we get the ball in his hands. He's exciting. And he said the same thing about Javonte Barnes. And I thought that was interesting as far as being the guy by the end of the year. I don't think so. Marcus Major is just like, I know everybody watched him. He's electric when he gets the ball. He's very, very, very exciting to watch. And he's going to eventually have that breakout game that's not in a bowl game. The last 2 breakout games he's had was the Cotton Bowl and the Alamo Bowl. So outside of that, there's been some, and there was a joke with a source I talked to said the exact same thing. He goes, it was good to see him do well, not in a bowl game, the last game of the season. So and so there's hope that Marcus Major can be that guy moving forward. Maybe not this year, because Eric Gray is going to be they love Eric Gray so much. Like they call him the consummate pro for a reason. So he's going to get the majority of the touches, Marcus Majors. And then after that, it's got to be Javonte, right? Like he's got to be that third guy. He's going to be that third guy. And eventually I think he'll be splitting carries with Marcus Major a little bit during the season. And I think next year it's going to be Javonte and Marcus Major as the 1-2 punch, with Gavin Sawchuk being that change of pace guy. And eventually, I think, and I know because there's already a question in there about Gavin Sawchuk and where he's. So Parker, we can talk about that now. I think Gavin Sawchuk is going to be a superstar before he leaves. Let me tell you something. Him and his family are okay with redshirting if that's what it takes this year. They're 100% okay with that. And they fully understand that he needs to put on a lot. He's already put on a lot of weight. He went from 175 to 195 now that he's at Oklahoma. They want him. They feel like a good, comfortable weight for him is 205, 210 next year. And if he can keep that speed that is just stupid between him, Gentry Williams, Jaron Kanak, and Jaden Rowe. I don't know that there's 4 faster guys. Oh, sorry, Justin Harrington. I don't know if there's 5 faster guys on Oklahoma's team than those guys. So, and I guess you could throw Marvin Mims in there as well if you wanted to, but those guys have elite speed. So, I mean, Gavin's up there with them, and was measured the fastest player in the team during fall camp over and over and over. Eventually, he's going to get those touches. Don't know how. At some point during the season, he's going to get some touches, and the fans are going to like what they see from him.
All right. Well, we're running up against an hour here. So I guess this will be a good time to tie a bow on this, especially because for the first time in quite a while, we've made it a full episode without any camera issues on my end. So hopefully that is a sign of things to come. Right. But yes, for those of you that missed the 75% off promo at ouinsider.com that ran for the past week or so, and if you are not yet a VIP, the good news is the offer always stands. You can get your first month of VIP membership for just $1 if you sign up anytime. So take it for a test drive, enjoy the trial run, enjoy 1 month of OU Insider for just $1. And then if you like it, stay on with us. I'm inclined to believe, based on what the streets are saying, that you will want to stick it out with us on a full-time annual basis thereafter. We had several people on the VIP board last week comment that, hey, I signed up with the $1 for a month promo and very quickly upgraded to the annual because I was that satisfied with the information I was receiving. Look, folks, you are not going to find more or better information and commentary on OU football and recruiting anywhere across the vast internet than you will at ouinsider.com.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. Look, it's still 30% off right now. So $75. The regular price is $108. We didn't just jump right back to $108. We're trying to give people chances not to pay a full price right now. So it's normally $108, but $75 to get you 1 year. As Parker said, $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards, if you want to do that. But we've had, I want to say, well, I know this month already, we're pushing close in the first 7 days, like 260 something, 70 something new subs already. Last month we hit 500. The month before we hit, I think it was like almost 700 new subs. So you guys are amazing, and it's because of you that we were able to do this. If it wasn't for you all, we don't have this job. We don't get to cover Oklahoma. We can't provide the information that we do for y'all. So you all make it happen. We have fast become one of the largest 247 sites that there is, period. And that again is the passion and the love that you all have for OU athletics. And we feel super blessed to be able to do that for you guys, because between our page views, I think we're on pace right now for like 22 million page views for the month of September. It's something stupid. So again, that is you guys. You guys are amazing, and we love you guys for it. So thank you guys so much for being on this YouTube live with us. We can't thank you guys enough. I say it over and over. Parker says it over and over, and we truly mean it. So thank you guys. All right, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm for Parker Thune. You guys have a blessed night.